worries.
There we go.
Fantastic.
Cool. Yeah, the internet connection's not great out here, so
Yeah.
I'm using this as a hotspot, and
Okay.
so the
Yeah.
cell network is a bit stronger than the satellite internet network.
All right. I
I see
see.
you have some books
Yeah.
there.
Oh, yeah. I thought I'd turn it into a bit of a McLuhan infomercial. So this is my collection back here.
Nice. Cool.
Um, yeah, so the main one I've been looking at, obviously, is understanding media.
Yeah.
Given all the work that you've been doing on it recently.
Cool.
Yeah.
What do
And
you think of media informal cause?
I only got that very recently, so
Yeah.
I haven't gotten into all of them yet. But
Sure.
but I would like to. That was the first one of your father's books that I got.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Oh, great.
yeah, yeah.
Well, as a way into that, on my YouTube channel, I uploaded an audio. It's just about half an hour. 23 years ago, 2017, some people put out a book in response to that book. Some people from
Okay.
the Media Ecology Association, I think called Taking Up McLuhan's Cause.
Oh yeah.
And it's a bunch of essays from media ecology people. And they had a panel at the Media Ecology Conference that year in California, to which my dad was the respondent. So after they all said their piece, my dad set them straight.
Yeah.
And luckily I had my phone with me and I recorded it.
Mm-hmm.
So I uploaded that audio, and it's just a really good explanation of what formal cause is all about. So maybe listen to that before you read the book, and that'll help you get into it, because
Okay.
the book's really dense.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But basically, I've just gotten online and looked up everything to do with McLuhan that I can.
Oh.
Um, yeah, my main entry point was the Mechanical Bride,
Awesome.
which I've got just there, and I'm a huge
Nice.
fan of highlighting books. I think
Okay.
that they're not designed to look pretty. They need to be used.
Well,
So
they're interactive media.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I did with this, I mean, just to give an example, um, there's I use highlighters. What's a good example? Um, I even actually deliberately spill tea and coffee on there because it creates a I was finding that I was reading it and it was all becoming too familiar. So what I did was, I put tea bags and spilled coffee on it, and then it started to create interesting patterns, and I started to look at the page in a different way.
Very cool.
Strange, unusual, but yeah, this is a great book. I would definitely recommend this as an entry into McLuhan.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm sort of stealing the original title to be the title of my book.
Mm.
I'm planning to use the Understanding Media course as a way to develop content for my first book.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, which I think, if I'm going to all the trouble of doing all this work for the course, I might as well make the most out of it. So
Oh yeah.
the original working title for Mechanical Bride was The Guide to Chaos.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I love
Yeah.
that. So I'm
Yeah.
going to use
Exactly. Yeah, I noticed that. That you've. Is that the title for the deep dive course?
no, the title of the course will be UMI,
Oh,
Understanding
okay.
Media Intensive.
Intensive. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
But um, for the book, I think, well, I don't know. You don't always have a choice in titles. That's the publisher likes to do those things, I guess. But
Yeah.
if I can, I'll go with Guide to Chaos.
Yeah.
Um, part of part of what I want that book to be will be because, you know, I focus on tools, on what's practical in McLuhan work,
Yeah.
um, aside from theory. Not that I have anything against with theory, but I think we're beyond theory, and we
Yeah. To
need
apply it.
tools and ways of coping.
Mm.
So I'm working on this series of things I call maelstrom escape strategies, which, you know, to come back to Edgar Allan Poe's story about the sailor and the maelstrom, um, things that we can use to actually improve our condition and help us escape these effects.
Mm.
And they come in a couple of different categories. Just because technologies affect us personally with our minds and our senses, as one category, they also affect us socially in a much broader category. So I think there are different levels of ways to, you know, combat
Mm.
or try and escape the maelstrom. And one way is by taking care of our own personal ecology, and the
Yeah.
other is by the social ecology. And we have a lot more control over our personal ecology. You know,
Mm.
in order to do something about the social ecology, we need a movement, and we need government, and we need regulation.
Yeah.
And you know, that's not going anywhere very fast. But what we can do is, we can, you know, take care of our own environment. So media diets, watching your input, um,
Yes.
and doing the best you can to create the mental and sensory environment that you want.
Yes, I
So
noticed
things like
this.
that.
Yeah, I noticed the sign outside your pop-up uh, institute saying that
Oh,
you're a media dietitian. So what does that involve?
yeah. Well, you know, I take a page from Marshall's book, as it were, and just throw out crazy things and see if people take me up on them, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
the idea of a media diet is, just to correlate it with, you know, a food diet, reducing your sugar, reducing your
Hmm.
fat to watch your weight, to watch your hypertension, all that. Reducing, taking a look at your screen time, taking a look. So the first part is to take a survey of what your media intake is. How
Yeah.
many days, how many hours a day do you spend on a screen? How many
Yeah.
different kinds of screens?
Mm.
What other media do you use? Do you read any books? Do you listen to music? Do you listen to
Mm.
headphones? Do you ever unplug totally and just listen to your own thoughts? Do you have conversations with people? Do you talk to the trees or to your dog? You know, a survey of all these different inputs. And half the purpose of that is just to have people aware of what they're doing, because, you know, nobody really pays attention to that. In fact, I've noticed that my phone pays attention to that and tells me that my screen use is up or down whatever percent.
Oh right.
Um, you know, I don't know if you have an iPhone that does that, but
Oh no. Okay.
yeah.
I
So the iPhone will tell you your weekly screen use is up 45%, or I was away for a few days last week and it was down 55% because, you know,
oh
I didn't
yeah.
have any internet access.
Yeah, how was it going away on did you go to a campground or something?
Yeah, it's only a couple hours drive away. It's called Bon Echo Provincial
Oh
Park.
yeah.
Excuse me. And it's great, you know, getting away with, we have two young boys. So
Hmm.
the four of us got away and slept in a tent for a few nights and
Oh great.
did some canoeing and fishing. And it's really interesting. This park is on a large lake called Lake Mazenau, and
Hmm.
it's well known because of this giant cliff, a sheer cliff face that runs along the water's edge. And
Yeah.
there's all these ancient native pictographs
Oh right.
along it, and you can rent a canoe or a boat and go have a look at them, which is really neat.
Oh
But
great.
what's bizarre is, 100 years ago, the person who owned the property there, she was one of the first Canadian suffragettes,
Hmm.
advocating for women's rights and the right to vote. And she was a huge fan of Walt Whitman.
Oh, okay.
And she had carved into the side of this cliff face a giant tribute to Walt Whitman, just carved right into the stone, which is kind of
Oh,
random,
wow. Yeah.
seeming and bizarre, but a beautiful thing. And I'd meant to bring some of Whitman's poetry with me, but
Oh, okay.
didn't manage to do it.
Oh, like leaves of grass.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, or I
All
thought
right.
to bring some Neruda as well, but
Oh, yeah.
I'll have to pick that up some other time.
And of course, you're a poet. So,
Yeah.
um, do you use poetry as a personal probing process, or do you have plans to publish it, or is it purely a private thing?
I've written poetry for as long as I can remember,
Yeah.
basically, since I was a little kid.
Mm.
Uh, and I self-published half a dozen little books, zines of poetry and artwork. I used to draw a lot. And I use it mainly as a self-reflection tool, a
Yeah.
way of uh, developing and expressing my own thoughts. I started last year offering poetic portraits, which was it was it was another one of these things where, I'll get an idea and I'll throw it out there.
Yeah.
And I had a bunch of people take me up on it, which was great. It's the idea is to capture some part of the essence of a subject in poetry.
Yeah.
Um, of course, it's a really big responsibility, so I was a little nervous about it, but um, I had really good results. I did, a dozen of them, and they were often met with tears. Somebody would hire me to write a poem about their daughter or something like that, and
Mm.
um, the the interesting thing is when it's supposed to be a surprise. I did a lot of them for Christmas.
Yeah.
How do you write an intimate poetic portrait of somebody without their knowing? So
Yeah.
what I did was I would interview the person, um, like in the case of someone's daughter, I'd interview their mother who hired me to write the poem. So my poem would be basically a reflection of how that person sees their daughter,
Ah,
uh,
yes.
which is an interesting perspective and I think valuable to both the subject and the person who hired me to write it. I'd love to do a book of those because that was a
Okay.
lot of fun. I
Yeah.
did some love poems,
Yeah.
couples portraits, and yeah, it's a really good exercise. Anytime I have occasion to write poetry is good.
Yeah.
When I was younger, when I was single, um, for some reason, I write poetry out. It's hard for me to do it at home. I like to go out to a bar or a cafe where there's a little bit of something going on and just kind
Yeah.
of soak up the environment.
Yeah.
Um, it's not the same doing it at home.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's
so
interesting. I've found the
yeah,
same, that writing on a bus, it can be quite good as well for poetry.
yeah, yep. Well, I experimented all kinds of stuff. I have a bunch of little notebooks here, and I would take them. I lived in Montreal for a few years, and I tried walking and writing poetry. So I have a few little
Oh,
notebooks that are really hard to read because I'm walking and writing at the
yeah,
same
yeah.
time.
Yeah, there's the same as being on the bus where when it's
Yeah,
going over bumps and you can see it
exactly.
registering almost like a seismic
Yep,
thing.
yep. So on the
Yeah.
bus or walking or but since I've been married and have kids, I have fewer
Oh,
opportunities
yeah.
for going out and sitting in a bar or a cafe and just
Oh,
writing.
yeah, absolutely.
So the main time I have to do it is when I go away on speaking trips and I have
Okay.
time to myself. So I have a lot of poetic record of trips with my dad and things like that, which
Mm.
are very valuable to me.
Oh, of course,
Um,
yes.
yeah. So and I think being a poet, having cultivated this poetic sensibility, um, is a very big advantage in the family business
Mhm.
because, of course, much of what Marshall did was straight up poetry.
Yeah.
So being familiar with uh, even if I didn't study it formally, it's more intimate in making. So I have, I think, a unique way to approach the McLuhan work from the poetic side of things, which I think is the best way to do it. But of course, I'm biased.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the McLuhan Institute and the work that you're doing, it's the McLuhan name, it's almost become like a dynasty, but you, your father, and your grandfather are very, very different
Yeah.
people.
Yep.
And you each have brought your own approach to things. I mean, for example, you've come out of punk culture, haven't you?
Yeah.
You have a particular and hip hop culture and things like this.
Yep.
And so how's that informed as well? Street art and all of that.
Yeah. Well, it all comes in. You're quite right. It's a weird thing being the third generation,
Yeah.
and I struggled for a long time, as anybody does, with identity.
Yeah.
But there's a really immense pressure for me, especially when I was talking about and getting more involved in McLuhan stuff. My dad was really putting pressure on me to go to school and to get a degree
Yeah. Right.
or degrees. And
Mm.
I thought that that was the way. If I wanted to do something, if I wanted to teach, I have to get a bachelor's, a master's, a
Mm.
PhD.
Mm.
However, that's not me.
Yeah.
And, personally, I lost interest in school around grade 3. It
Oh,
just,
right. That early.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, and, if you look at my school record, it shows, because after about grade 3, my grades just start
Oh,
going
right.
down. And
Yeah.
I remember it so well. My grade 5 teacher, Mr. Letters,
Hmm.
the
Was he
kids would
really
say
called Mr. Letters?
Mr. Letters. And
Okay.
yeah, for real. And the kids used to say life was a bowl of cherries until Mr. Letters ate them all.
Right.
He wasn't the most popular teacher.
Okay.
And I vividly remember he kept me after class one day to have a lecture to tell me to get my shit together. And I remember it clear as day, him telling me, "You're going down the tubes, boy."
Oh
And
no.
it, like, it rings in my head.
Oh no.
No, it's hilarious. It's funny.
But but look at you
Um,
now.
well,
This.
this is the thing. So, and my grade 3 teacher, Mrs. Way, um, almost killed poetry for me, because
Oh, right.
there was this exercise where she had written a poem on the board, and all we had to do was copy it down and hand it
Hmm.
in. Well, I wrote it out. It was written in stanza form, and I wrote it out in paragraph form to make best use of the paper. And
Oh,
I
okay.
handed it in, and
Hmm.
she handed it back and said, "That's wrong, do it again." So I
Oh,
thought, okay. So I wrote it again the same way, and that went on a few times. And it just became so frustrating that it almost took all the joy of poetry out for me. But, I managed despite that.
oh,
Um,
wow.
so yeah, no, I lost interest in school early, and I remember in
Yeah.
grade 9, I was doing so poorly. I was failing like half my classes, and the half I was passing just barely. And they gave
Mm.
me an IQ test, because I remember them saying, "We want to find out if you're stupid or just
Yeah.
lazy." You know, yeah, the things they say to kids, right?
Yeah, God.
And apparently I had a very good IQ. So
Okay.
that was the deal. And it wasn't that I was lazy. I was just uninterested, you
Yeah.
know. And it's kind of surprising to me that my dad didn't figure that out, given the McLuhan work, um, and the knowledge that kids today aren't interested in school because there's much more outside school than there is inside. So,
Yeah.
that's why Marshall talked about the city's classroom and
Oh,
programming
absolutely.
environment.
Yes.
So, but it's hard when it's your own kid, right? So I get that.
Mm.
But in any case, long and short of it was that by the time I graduated high school, I had zero interest in going any further.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And that's actually, I think, been a net benefit, because really,
Mm.
most people aren't PhDs,
Yeah.
um, and have no interest in an academic approach. And in fact, the academic approach is all theory, really.
Yeah.
And as I said, we're past the time for theory. We need to be doing things. Um, and the effects of technology are happening out in the greater world, in universities too, but it's, nothing really happens in universities except theory and testing and
Mm.
writing essays and fighting for tenure and
Yeah.
blah blah blah. And listen, I don't want to talk down on universities,
Oh,
because
yes.
they are fantastic places with great people, and they do important work. But uh, for me anyway, I think it's time for my generation, for us, to take things out of academia and into the wider world,
So,
where we can
mm,
hopefully get something done.
okay. So, would that involve doing more probes and experiments? I mean, since I've been watching your work and looking at what you're doing online and all the interviews you've done and so on, I've started to do some experiments of my own that sound quite silly. But for example, I would chew gum and read a book and see how the chewing change, and it really does change the way that you read.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
and also with headphones, I noticed that as I was walking down the street, I had more difficulty judging approaching cars. I was safe, but um, my sense of proprioception
Yeah,
was affected, and so I think I've just become a lot more mindful about how these things affect me. For example, when you went
great.
away on your camp, um, one of the joys in my day is to look at your puns
Oh,
on Twitter, and but of course you went away for a few days, and then I started having pun withdrawals, and and it's terrible because a lot of these things, they're very addictive. All
yeah,
Yeah, just the nature of the medium is
sure.
addictive, regardless of, yeah. So
That's funny.
I know I'm rambling all over the place. You can tell I haven't done this before.
That's fine. You're good. It's a conversation.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Um, so is it things like this? I mean, one wouldn't learn these sorts of things in a classroom. It's again the city as a teaching environment.
Yep.
I loved what Marshall said about how Plato wasted his time really setting up an academy, because he could have just used Athens as the school of philosophy. Um,
Yep.
so is that what you mean by practical applications of these things? I mean, there are many levels, like not to mention regulation and those sorts of things. But
Sure.
so
The
the
main
practice,
thing,
yeah,
the main thing is what you're doing. It's experimentation, you
yeah,
know, uh, and just seeing what works, playing around, seeing what works and what doesn't. Um, like you brought up the punk rock thing,
mm,
and the the essence of punk rock is, fuck the system and do it yourself.
yeah,
Don't ask for permission,
yeah,
but make things happen.
yeah,
Throw a show, street art. Don't
yeah,
ask for permission. Make art. You
yeah,
know this, and it's also reaction in street art and graffiti. Street art and graffiti are a reaction to the assault of the environment on the individual,
mm,
the assault of the man-made environment, billboards, advertising, um, the environment telling you all these things and you not allowed to respond.
yes,
Graffiti and street art are are do-it-yourself responses to curating your own environment.
Yes.
And that's one part of it. Another part of it is, this is why I really enjoyed the last talk I did in New York, where I brought Banksy into comparison with Marshall McLuhan.
Monograffiti, right?
That's right, monograffiti. Enter through the bookshop. Because Banksy, Marshall would have loved Banksy in street art, because they really are the gold standard of what Marshall considered a serious artist. And that's somebody who is paying attention to their environment and telling us what's happening in it. And Banksy is one of the top people in the world doing that. A lot of hip hop artists as well are the same. My dad thought, although he didn't appreciate hip hop, he appreciated hip hop artistry. And he said a few different places that hip hop artists are doing the work that poets should be doing and art doing.
Yeah.
Because they're out there playing with the language and exploring and doing really, really interesting things. I love hip hop because, you know, that's the culture that I grew up in. You know, my friends and I were all obsessed with Wu-Tang and Cypress Hill and stuff like that. And we all gave each other hip hop names from Wu-Tang. Like I was Ghostface Killah and my friend was, oh yeah.
Fantastic.
You know.
That's great.
I dabbled in hip hop a little bit, just as I played in a punk rock band too. Because you know, making art is essential. It's how we explore our identity. It's how we make sense of things, and that's why art is one of the main foundations of the McLuhan Institute.
Yes.
So I mean, it wouldn't be right if the McLuhan Institute didn't support the arts. So one of my main projects around the medium is the message is to have an annual event where I invite artists across all media, any kind of media, anybody who wants to call themselves an artist and take part. Music, poetry, visual arts, auditory arts, computer technology, whatever. But what I'll invite artists to do is to explore what the medium is the message means today. In 2020. And to submit artworks that don't explain it, but explore it and try to describe using their art what that means, what today's environment looks, feels, sounds like. What I'll do with that is I'll use the top few submissions when I have the money to do it, to offer them artist residencies at the McLuhan Institute for the next year. I'd love to offer one a month, maybe one every 2 months. And an artist would be able to come and explore more deeply that connection over like a 1 or 2 month period. The great thing about having an annual exhibition like that is that every year you end up with an artistic record of what the cultural and technological environment looks like. So that you develop a timeline that going forward you can look backward and try and make sense of the situation, or see where we were or weren't and what we knew and what we didn't. I think it's very, very important to lean heavily on the arts in order to make sense of technology and our responses to it. So this is one of the ways that the McLuhan Institute can operate outside of academia in a way that academia can't necessarily do things. Which I think is going to be a valuable contribution.
Oh, absolutely. And I was just thinking, how's your mission statement going? Because I'm sure that included in that mission statement would be support of the arts.
Of course. Yeah.
but yeah, I think I mentioned to you before that they are notoriously difficult to write.
They
they're sh-
are.
yeah,
Um, I mean, basically, my mission statement is that the McLuhan Institute is created to continue McLuhan studies in the McLuhan tradition. That's what it boils down to.
yeah,
However, to explain what McLuhan studies are and what the McLuhan tradition is a longer conversation. So,
mm,
which isn't really useful for a mission statement.
okay,
For a mission statement, it would have to be something like the McLuhan Institute exists to explore the effects of technology on culture,
yeah,
something like that. But it has to be a little more uh, impactful, I guess. So
yeah,
I'm working on it, but it's tricky, as you say.
yeah, okay, and also the fact that you're almost a one-man show, aren't you? Do you get much help?
I've got a lot of help, actually.
Oh, great.
I do feel a bit like a one-man show, but it kind of has to be for
Yeah.
now anyway. Coming back to McLuhan studies in the McLuhan tradition,
Hmm.
um, very few people, I think, are able to describe what the McLuhan tradition actually is, or able to, set something up like this. Even I am not, you know, I've only been in it for 10 years, really.
Mm.
Although I grew up around it, so it's kind of, I've soaked it in all these years. But um, really, my dad was supposed to do this, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and I started the McLuhan Institute because I didn't think he was going to live a long time.
Mm.
And he ended up living less than a year after I started it. So it's like, but he did leave. He and Marshall left behind. This is what gives me a lot of courage and hope
Mm. Mm.
uh, and faith,
Yeah.
is that Marshall and Eric left behind so much, so many trail markers to help us find our way.
Yeah.
That Marshall was the explorer, and now we can be navigators.
Yeah.
And that's where I think my main role is in navigating things.
Hmm.
Um, although as long as we continue to innovate and create new technologies, which is, as long as we're human, we'll continue to do that. We
Yeah.
will necessarily need to be explorers, because every new technology affects us in new ways and recreates us into new people,
Hmm.
recreates the culture anew every time.
Oh, yeah.
So we can't be comfortable and say that it's just about navigating now, because we'll always need to be exploring the new, because we'll always be recreating ourselves. And that's, again, pardon me, why we owe so much to the arts, and why we have
Yeah.
to foster the arts, because they're the only ones crazy enough to do it.
Mm.
Honestly, I mean, they are our biggest researchers and our biggest assets in understanding technologies. Although we need the sciences as well. Um, One of the things that Marshall tried to do, it came out as a result of his year at Fordham University,
Hmm.
was he wanted to set up sensory profile measurement centers. That's not what he called them, but a way of um, measuring the balance among people's senses,
Yes.
um, because we know that each technology affects your senses in different ways.
Yeah.
When you affect one sense, you affect all senses.
Hmm.
So he said somewhere that the need in our time is for the means of measuring senses and sense ratios.
Yeah.
And so he had this idea of setting up centers that would be able to do that. Um, so there's a lot of work that needs to be done in that, and that's more
Yeah.
on the science side. But the
Yeah.
art side is kind of a hack into that from a unscientific or alternatively scientific way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's reasons why we need the arts and the sciences on board.
Yeah, incredible. This is
Excuse me
great.
for rambling.
Yeah, no, I'm rambling too. It's difficult to because there are so many things in my mind that I want to express. McLuhan Studies and Media Studies has so many layers, and I like how you ironically said once that you're a McLuhan specialist, because McLuhan has so many different layers and levels to him, and I think this is where your understanding media, the UMI will be really good, because the ground, I guess, is all those cultural references that he makes throughout that book, and I've highlighted them, and I've seen Shakespeare and the poets and even radio presenters and things like this, inventors, businessmen, all sorts of areas of life. And he creates this vast network. And so I think with understanding media, like, where is it? The Mechanical Bride, Folklore of Industrial Man, you can enter into the book from any particular place.
Yeah.
It reminds me of
like
Finnegan's
it's a book
Wake.
of poetry.
Yeah, there are
a book of poetry you can open anywhere. You don't have to start at the start.
Yeah.
Pick any one piece, and that's how to treat understanding media as well, to a certain extent. But you're right. He used his contemporary and past. He used all of literature really to demonstrate the things, to illustrate the book. They're sort of literary illustrations, and understanding media could be rewritten for today, taking out his literary allusions and adding in modern examples using hip hop and punk rock or whatever else. As I said, each generation needs to invent their Shakespeare anew.
Yeah.
And that's
can
why.
I just jump in there?
Go ahead. Please do.
Oh, sorry. You just prompted the thought that the 60s, they were his zeitgeist. So the celebrities and the various, what he might call cultural exhibits that he would take out and examine, that was his now. And now we're looking at them as cultural artifacts. And that's the thing. I think it was Kant who said of Hume that he shook me out of my dogmatic slumber. And I feel the same with McLuhan, with Marshall. That we like to categorize things into high and low culture as well. Mm-hmm. And even the terms highbrow and lowbrow, I think, came from phrenology or something, where they believed that studying skull shapes said how intelligent you are and all that. And that's what I just love about the Mechanical Bride, that just examining everything from all these advertisements and looking at the press and industry and trashy novels and and it all weaves together. I can see how he uses I think symbolist poetry as well to create connections between seemingly disparate areas. And he demands active engagement from people to read it, and he's actually really improved my life.
Ah, that's
Yeah, I'm just,
it's so nice to hear. And it's not, the amazing thing is it's not the first time I've heard it. Marshall McLuhan had this uncanny ability to reach people and to affect them deeply.
yeah.
I meet people who say, "Oh, I saw your grandfather talk, um, and it changed my life," or, you know, "I had a 2-minute conversation with him, and it changed my life." And what I really, one of the things I love about him was he wasn't elitist. He wasn't a
No, not at all.
snob, um, which is exemplified by how he treated high and low culture.
Yes, exactly.
But he would talk to anybody,
Yep.
um, and it's the same with high and low culture. Is that um, it's all worth study,
Yes.
uh, you know,
It
and
reveals things. It all
it
reveals things.
reveals things. They all reveal things different ways,
Yeah.
um, and that's incredible, and it's great to me. Now, that said, he could also be a really difficult teacher, and he didn't give people, he challenged people, you know, he
Oh,
made them work.
absolutely. In the best way,
uh,
I think.
exactly. In my thing last night, which I think you saw, I read a bit from this book, Forward Through the Rearview Mirror,
Yeah.
and one of the passenger passages was
Hmm.
from Frank Zingroni, who wrote a book called The Media Simplex, and he talked about how he sat in on a McLuhan class, and it was about French symbolist poetry, and he said he opened the world for him, and he broke out into a cold sweat,
Mm,
because he just, you know, he made things click for a lot of
incredible.
people. Yeah,
Yes.
and you know, that's what his main goal was to open these doors of perception and to wake people up, you
Mm,
know, um, to you know, that was his whole point, and that's why he chose the methods that he did.
yeah.
He was a satirist. That
Yeah.
is, he wasn't there to make fun of people, but to shock them into seeing what was going on around them.
Yeah.
And when he did that, he was doing his job. So he used the tools available to him, and coming out of literature and poetry, he
Mhm.
obviously went that route. Myself, I'm kind of coming from a similar place, but from outside of academia. So, of course, that's the way I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And hopefully, that's an advantage, because I'm able to speak to people more on our level than in academic sort of language and
Yeah, I
sensibility.
agree. Yeah, no, I agree. Absolutely. And I just got reminded of what McLuhan said about James Joyce in The Mechanical Bride. He said that he was a man who was interested in everyone and everything,
Yeah.
and it's like Marshall McLuhan aspired to be like him in that manner. And
Yeah. Well, the grammarian, the person who could read the two books, the book of
yeah.
scripture and the book of nature. Uh,
Mm.
yeah.
Oh, okay. This ties back nicely with what I said about reading the book of nature, so that when you walk down the street, you can constantly be probing things, and
Yeah.
they interesting insights start to emerge.
And it ties back into, this is why I brought Banksy into the
Yeah,
conversation, because of the literal writing on the wall.
yeah, yeah. And I loved that that lecture you gave, because I
Oh,
think it,
thanks.
yeah, well, I think it illustrated environment and anti-environment very well.
Yeah.
Um, like with you mentioned the girl with the pearl earring, and yeah, it's and as I was thinking about this, because when I watch your things stay with me, and they start to work their way out, in my experience. And I found that even taking a photograph of something, I'm not sure if I'm making sense, but it's like it takes what's ordinarily background and turns it into figure. Am I
Yep,
making any sense?
you are, sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, for example, things with COVID-19 have changed in extraordinary ways. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if you have Aldi supermarkets in Canada.
No.
Oh, okay. Um, they've put up perspex boxes around their checkouts,
Yeah.
and they look like it looks like something out of Black Mirror. So they tried to make light of it, and they had a sign on there that said "Screen time with a difference." um, okay, and so I took this photo, and without engaging with media studies in this way, I don't think I would look at the environment in the same way either. So yeah, it's
Yeah, of course. Well, you know, media studies are the ultimate anti-environment.
yeah.
McLuhan studies are the ultimate anti-environment,
Mm.
and that's the whole point. Um, yeah, I'm doing this understanding media course, but it's really just the tip of the iceberg. Uh, my idea is to gather all of these McLuhan tools and to, ironically enough, create a sort of school.
Mm.
Um, but not a school in the conventional sense. Like in my course for understanding media, I'm not going to be giving anybody assignments.
Mm.
You know, I'm not going to have you write papers. If you want to write papers, I'll look at them and tell you what I think for sure. But it's not a requirement.
Mm.
And there won't
Mm.
be marks coming out of it. Um, the marks that come out of it, the value will be how it equips you to better understand the McLuhan work, but it's not even about that toolbox. So the
Mm.
success will be measured in how you're able to use these tools when you come out of the course.
Yeah.
And by extension, that's my goal with McLuhan Studies and the McLuhan Institute's educational program, is how it equips people to look at the world in different ways. Um, one of the courses that I'm really looking forward to offering, which you could never get away with in a university, is a Finnegan's Wake reading course.
Ah, yeah.
And basically the course will be a group of students meeting once a week and reading Finnegan's Wake out loud to each other.
Yeah.
Um,
Interesting.
reading and talking about it. But it's like you said with my Twitter feed and the puns.
Yeah.
I'm throwing those out there. Well, Finnegan's Wake is just a way bigger and better group of Twitter puns. You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
okay, I'm reducing it absurdly, but the point is the way that you said that all those puns affected you,
Mm.
um, and it kind of leaked into your life, and you
Yeah.
noticed when they were gone.
Yeah.
That's how Finnegan's Wake works too. Not by the gritty details, but by how it changes your own perceptions and how you encounter and interact with language.
Yeah.
Uh, and so that's the whole point, and that's what Marshall means when he talks about training sensibility and perception, by effect, not by the content,
Yeah.
because you can't read Finnegan's Wake for a couple months straight and not have it affect your life,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
for better or worse, depending
Yeah.
on your perspective.
For better, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. My wife might disagree.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah, she doesn't have a high opinion of James Joyce.
Oh, right. Okay.
Worst writer ever, I think she said.
Oh, Ouch. Okay.
I know.
Wow.
That's fine. You know what? We need people like this in our lives to keep us in check.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So, I was just wondering. I was wrote down. Sorry, I'm quite nervous because um, I wrote down the names in understanding media, and I made that spreadsheet and sent it
That's
to you.
amazing. That is so great. I saw that. What a valuable
Oh,
resource.
you're
Yeah.
happy with it? It's pretty decent. It's
Are
useful.
you kidding? I'm incredible. And I thought, uh, man, it's really cool because then it got me thinking about Marshall McLuhan's library at the Fisher Rare Book Library, his
Mm.
annotated library, um, and how great it would be to be able to cross-reference that list of references in understanding media to the actual books in his library where he'll
Yeah.
have his own annotations about it.
Oh,
Um,
great. That would be fantastic. Yeah.
incredible resource. And I know that Fisher would like to digitize a lot of that, which I'm,
Oh,
you know,
great.
100% in support of.
Yeah.
Um, and having that list is, you know, one part toward it. You could take that list and then see how many of those books are still in Marshall's library. And
Oh,
um,
yes.
yeah,
Oh,
really
fantastic.
interesting. So
So
thank you for sending
that,
that. That's very
that's
helpful.
okay. So you're happy for me to continue with it, and I can
Oh,
tell you how
please
the
do.
progress. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Oh, that's my pleasure. It's all good. Um, yeah, it makes it a lot easier to understand once those references are understood. I mean, there's obscure pop culture references from the 1960s and earlier. Um, Another example, the article where was it Michael Rockefeller who disappeared in the jungle because he was
Mm.
out traveling in Papua New Guinea, and it was assumed that he'd
Yeah.
been eaten by the natives. And your grandfather was saying how um, this whole thing, this suddenly introduces ideas of radically different patterns of life to a wide range of people.
Yeah.
And I didn't know also in the first chapter, actually, this is another example. Um, the medium is the message is the first one, isn't it? The
Yeah.
first chapter. And he quotes General, what's his name?
Sarnoff.
Yeah, General Sarnoff. I thought he was an actual general. And so I looked it up, and it turns out that he was the head of RCA, the Radio Corporation of America, which
Yeah.
I didn't know. So,
And he was a big deal at the time.
right.
Yeah. Marshall picking him out was, you know, picking a big
Oh,
fight.
yeah, right. Okay. Would it be a bit like, I don't know,
It'd be like
uh,
taking on Elon Musk or Bill
or
Gates.
Murdoch, or yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right. I mean, he was pretty ballsy. He did the same with was it Henry Luce?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and they're
He was incredibly ballsy, and confident,
yeah,
um, because he had an extreme, um, faith and confidence in what he was doing. You could say arrogance, you know, many people
mm,
did. But you also have to understand what he was doing. And what he was doing was in a large part performance and
hmm,
satire. Um, and when you're coming at it from that, and he was playing, right? And
yeah,
when you're coming at it from that perspective, um, you're there to have fun. You know, he didn't take it, um, all that seriously. He took it very lightly, and of course, that is also taking it very seriously,
yes,
paradoxically.
yeah,
Yeah.
He loved paradoxes. I wonder whether he got. I think he maybe got that love from G.K. Chesterton.
Exactly.
Yeah. Again, um, I've been introduced to so many different pieces of literature through Marshall McLuhan. I've got
Yeah.
Le Fleur du Mal by
Oh, great.
Baudelaire,
Malraux.
and yeah,
Oh, Baudelaire.
yeah, by Baudelaire, yeah. Um, things like that. So I've actually been highlighting these things and then adding them to my collection. And
Yeah,
yeah,
that's one of the things is all the insane amount of reading that Marshall did
oh my God, yes,
for his doctoral thesis. He
yeah.
crammed a lifetime's worth of reading into a few years for his history of the trivium,
Oh
um,
yes,
which is insane.
yeah.
Um, and again, to your point about the literary references and other references, pop culture references in
Mm.
understanding media, um, he, and my father believed the same thing, that it's a job of the teacher to save their students time,
Hmm.
So Marshall didn't expect you to necessarily have read everybody he read. A lot of what he was doing was giving you the best parts. That's a
Hmm.
lot of what I'm doing. For example, on Twitter, the McLuhan Institute, the quotes that I throw out there are like the choice little quotes from the reading that I'm doing.
Hmm.
Um, saving you or anybody the job of sifting through it.
Yeah,
Hopefully I'm enticing you to go back and look at these works,
yeah,
because
absolutely.
I mean that's the result of his aphoristic style, is that it's so quotable.
Oh, it
uh,
is. Yeah.
and really, like, it's hard sometimes. I'm reading something and I want to just, I get one sentence done and I'll tweet it out and then carry on, and oh shoot, I want to do that too. It's like,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
tweet the whole book, right? um, but yeah, that's the amount of literary references is insane, and to read all those peripherals from McLuhan's work is a lifetime of work itself. Um, but
Oh,
it's
yeah.
very helpful that you're compiling that list, so that it takes a lot of the legwork out. What would be a really interesting project would be to take out all those literary references and put in contemporary references
Oh,
and
okay.
rewrite understanding media
That
that
would be
way.
fascinating.
That
What
would
would
be
you, so you mentioned perhaps,
So, for
uh,
example, you would take out General Sarnoff and you would put in Elon Musk,
yeah,
and take something that Elon Musk said and destroy it on how it's, how he's the poster boy for the current somnambulism, which he kind
yes,
of is.
yes, I would agree, yes. Oh, wow, that would be a fascinating exercise. Because again, as interesting as it is to that those fresh insights that Marshall had, they were from his zeitgeist. So yes, you're right. We have to um,
Hello, kitty.
examine our own times. Say that again.
Who's your friend?
Oh, that is. I have two cats, Squishy and Mushy, and that's Mushy. Um, yes,
Mushy.
so, yeah, it's
Well,
Mushy.
the McLuhans, we like our cats.
Oh, really? You've got cats too?
Yeah. Well, I
Oh,
have two cats, Juniper and Barry.
yeah.
And we used to call my dad the cat whisperer.
Oh, right. He was
Yeah.
really. He could
he
calm
had
them.
he had a way with cats.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, there's a funny picture. Do I have it? I don't have it at hand, but there's a funny picture of Marshall pulling aside a curtain and saying hi to this kitten.
Okay.
There's is there an Instagram or a Twitter about philosophers and their cats? Yeah.
Oh, I mean, Baudelaire was a cat lover as well.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah. Right. He wrote quite a bit about cats
yeah,
too.
he did. He did.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, they're a symbol of. I think they're the ultimate anarchists because they they sleep when they want to.
They don't care.
Yeah, they don't care. They really don't. They don't even feel particularly obligated to you for feeding them and giving them water. But yeah, I respect them as animals. But yes, sorry, I
They're
didn't.
kind of punk. They're
That
kind of
threw
punk
me.
rock.
Yeah, exactly. A bit punk rock. That totally threw me when. Sorry about that.
No, that's all right. I feel like my cats are always giving me the finger.
Oh yeah, yeah. That sort of look in their eyes of cold contempt and yeah, yeah. Um, so are they ginger cats or?
The one's ginger. They're brother and sister. The one's a ginger and the other's a tortoiseshell tabby.
Oh, okay, right.
So the ginger's very friendly and um, also doesn't like when we go away and likes to crap on the couch.
Oh
Thanks.
no!
Yeah,
Why?
thanks, Barry. I don't know. I wish I knew. And
Maybe
then the other one, the tortoiseshell tabby, is very much doesn't care. Just
so.
feed me.
So okay, so Barry's this kind of passive aggressive
Yeah.
sociopath. Okay,
Yep.
interesting.
Yeah.
Good.
Cats
Um,
are good fun,
yeah, they are.
except when they
Um,
crap on your couch.
yeah, no, that's not good.
We can do without that.
Have you got litter for them? Do you litter about?
Oh yeah, they each
Yeah,
have their own litter boxes. They're clean.
yeah.
It's just he doesn't like us going away.
That's interesting.
No,
Okay.
it's the worst. And he'll usually wait until we come home.
Oh.
We'll come home and everything's fine. It's like, oh, great. You didn't crap anywhere, Barry. Good job. An hour later, it's like,
Oh yeah, it's the worst. It's the
that,
worst smell,
oh,
isn't it? Yeah,
you
yeah.
bastard.
Oh no. Oh God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um.
I wish the cat whisperer were around you know, to
But you
help
know.
us with our cat situation.
Oh yeah. But you know what, Andrew? I think your dad would be immensely proud of what you've done. You know.
Oh, thanks.
I think yeah. I think you've done a really good job, and I was really surprised at how many people signed up for your
Isn't that amazing? I'm close to 40 now
yeah.
that want to know more. I suspect that it'll be too expensive for some people, but I'm hoping to offer some kind of scholarship for at least a few people. No,
Wow.
it's really, again, it's one of those things that I kind of threw this out there and now I have to put my money where my mouth is and actually do it. But it's great because if if people weren't signing up and weren't going to pay for me to deliver this, I wouldn't
Mm,
have the time to spend to do it.
yeah.
That's why I love giving speeches,
Yeah.
and I never give the same speech twice
Hmm.
because it's a way for me to look deeper into material and answer new questions or answer them
Yeah.
differently. So I love that.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that. After dad died, I was, I felt really, um, unsure about it because uh, he was supposed to be here for more years and I have so many more questions. And,
Mm,
who am I to answer any of them? But it didn't take long before I realized that a couple things. For one,
mm,
in my dad's last speech, Media Ecology in the
yeah.
21st Century, he
Yeah.
ends it by saying to the crowd, but also to you and I and anybody else, that we're explorers and we're in a new situation
Mm,
and to have courage. This was the
yes.
thing he emphasized,
Yeah.
courage.
Yeah.
And that gives me courage daily.
Yeah.
The other thing is that Marshall died New Year's Eve, 1980, December 31st, 1980. And at that point, my dad was just about the same age as me. He was, I guess, 38. I
Mm.
was 39 when my dad died.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad had a couple of kids. He'd been working with Marshall for just over 10 years. And Marshall died at age 69. He died way before his time. And
Mm.
they were still expecting him to come out of his stroke and be able to talk again.
Mm. Yeah.
So he left my dad very suddenly, and my dad was left on his own to find his way. And I can only imagine I know how he felt
Mm.
because I was left the same way.
Yeah.
The thing
Oh
that gives
dear.
me courage is that my dad not only carried on, but he did an incredible job. He did so much valuable work. That book behind you, Media Informal Cause, is
Yeah.
just one of the things that he managed to do.
Yeah.
Theories of communication, which you have to get. The
Yeah.
sensus communis, synesthesia, and the soul, gigantic work.
Yeah. Right.
And he just kept going, essays and talks for decades. This
Wow.
gives me hope because a while after my dad died, I came across some report cards from him in high school.
Oh, he didn't
And
do so well, did he?
oh, it was bad. It was
Yeah.
bad. He was doing really awfully. And the remarks by his teachers were that, you know, he's a poor student and he's got to get his stuff together. And I was like, geez, Dad, like, you
Yeah.
know, it's we're not the same person, obviously, but we followed very similar paths. And although he went the academic route and got his
Hmm.
bachelor's, master's, PhD, and a couple of honorary degrees. Um, those facts combined with the fact that he believed in me and he believed that I could do it. He was kind enough to tell me on a few occasions that I was up to it and
Yeah.
that he thought I was doing a good job and that I was making progress.
Yeah.
All those factors combined help me get through some hard days where I feel like I'm in way over my head and I'm not
Yeah.
Marshall and I'm not Eric. I'm just a punk rock, almost dropout. But
Yeah.
that gives me so much hope. And it also gives me hope for everybody else because hell, if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Oh, you're very self-deprecating, but yeah, um I think you're doing a really, really good job, and I think it's unfair for you to compare yourself to either of them because, like I said, you're three very, very different men,
Yeah.
each doing this in your own way, and your way and your particular background is will lend its own flavour to it, and you'll express it
Yep.
because. TMI is very strange. It's a strange institute because Marshall never really had any dogmas. Everything was really about exploration, and so when you're trying to preserve, um, um, yeah, it's difficult because he can't be nailed down, and I think this is what frustrated people about Marshall.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is that it evolves. And by the way, can I just tell you that this is my first ever Zoom meeting, and I'm
Oh,
really it's very strange for me. I'm just trying to get used to this to this.
you know what? I've gotten used to it doing my weekly TMI
Oh
live
yeah,
using my phone.
yeah,
It took me a while to get used to it because you know, I put it right here where my computer is now and do my thing, and it's like you're talking to yourself,
yeah,
but at the same time, it's in the back of your mind. Uh, well, for one thing, I do it on so I can see in the corner 4 people. Usually, it's like 3, 4, or 5 people are watching.
hmm
And then sometimes at the bottom here, usually my friends say rain and every week, and he'll say hi. So I do know people are there. But then there's also this very odd thing in that I upload them onto my YouTube. So I know that the audience is potentially gigantic.
Mm.
Not that thousands of people are ever going to watch anything I do, but when you put things on the internet, you have a potential audience.
Oh yeah.
And that potential, if you're thinking about it, is a weird thing too, because it's this bizarre thing where you have this existential feeling of transcending time and space.
Yes.
Because I'm talking to you right now, but even then, you're in tomorrow
Yeah,
in
I am. Yeah.
Australia, and I'm here yesterday in Canada,
Yeah.
and yet I'm also 20 years in the future talking to my son
Yeah.
Ezra, if he's
Yeah.
watching this, because he could be.
Yeah.
Hey Ezra, I love you, and all the other people who could be like, it's a very, speaking of paradox, it's a very strange thing, but you have to just put that out of your mind. And there's no time like the present, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And so um are you okay if I send off a letter first? I asked whether I could write letters to you, and
Yeah, no,
um
please do. You didn't, I need your mailing address. So you
oh I
became, oh, maybe I haven't checked in. You became a
oh, okay.
Patreon subscriber,
Yeah.
which thank you so much.
Oh, that's all right.
Honestly, it really, every time I get a notification that somebody's subscribed to my Patreon,
Mm-hmm.
it makes my day. And
Oh,
it
okay.
doesn't matter. I mean, obviously it does matter, but it doesn't matter if it's like somebody signed up for $1 or $5 or $100 or $200. I've got
Mm.
one person who is in for $200 every month, and it's like,
Yeah.
that gives me just, it's not even about the money. The support means so much, because putting your money where your mouth is tells me that you value what I do,
Yeah.
and that
Absolutely.
just helps me keep going.
Yeah.
Also, the financial, what it comes down to is the financial resources make it possible for me to do stuff like this.
Yeah.
um, and because I have a family to feed,
Oh, of
and
course. Yes.
building the McLuhan Institute uh, the way I want to is going to take a couple $1 million,
Yeah. Yeah.
frankly. I want to build uh, the Center for Culture and Technology that Marshall wanted.
Mm-hmm.
We have a thing here in Canada called the Banff Center, which is out in Banff, Alberta, on the West Coast almost.
Okay.
And it's basically a center dedicated to arts and also sciences. And they support a lot of artist residencies, writers, painters, musicians, and they also host conferences.
Yeah.
Pardon me. And my vision for the McLuhan Institute is basically if the Banff Center were directed by a McLuhan.
Oh, okay.
And now that I live here on what was once my parents' property, but now mine,
Mm.
um, this is where I want it to happen. So I have this building, which is actually, oddly enough, it's about the same size as Marshall's Center for Culture and Technology
Oh,
was
yeah.
in
That's
Toronto.
great.
But then I have a 3-story barn right beside me. So
Mm-hmm.
I have the room for all the expansion I would ever need. And add to that I want to build a geodesic structure all through and over top of it,
Oh,
um,
fantastic.
to make it, um, that much more fun.
Oh, and
So,
that is that a reference to Buckminster Fuller and his geodesic domes?
of course,
Yeah,
and
beautiful.
the geodesic dome represents acoustic space. This
Okay.
area of simultaneity, where the hard structure of a barn represents visual space in lineality and
Oh, right.
sequentialism. So bringing the two together um, represents the meeting of all these different forms, and hopefully a place of understanding and
Mm,
exploration.
mm.
So I had originally thought of just building a giant dome over top and encapsulating the McLuhan Institute inside.
Yeah.
But I think what would be much better would be to build the structures through each other.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That is fantastic. My God.
But like I said, it's going to take a couple $1,000,000.
Yeah.
So I'll need a lot more Patreon
Oh,
supporters.
wow.
But doing things like offering this course is a step. Coming out of the
Yeah.
course, I'll hopefully be able to get a book out of it, and that
Yeah.
will hopefully lead to more speaking. And it all goes into the McLuhan Institute pot. So
Oh, that's so exciting. That's
yeah.
fantastic. So
And
you're,
then I'll be able to really welcome people here. You know, anybody who comes to Southern Ontario to do McLuhan work, I hope will want to come here as well.
yes.
I'm just a couple hours drive outside of Toronto.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm pretty much a midpoint between Toronto and Ottawa.
Yeah.
Ottawa, where the National Archives are, Toronto, where McLuhan's library is.
Yeah.
So, if you're going to go to either place, you can stop in here.
Oh, that's great. Almost like a little pilgrimage site or something.
Yeah,
'Cause
right?
yeah. I mean, it's my dream to go over there. I know it won't
Cool.
happen with COVID. COVID, God knows how long this will go on for.
Yeah.
But that is my dream. I would love to do that.
Great. I can't wait.
Yeah. So we're coming up to, God, an hour and 17 minutes. So I don't want to impose too much on your time.
How dare you?
um, um, but yeah, I think you've got my address. I emailed my address to you. So
Okay, cool.
yeah. So I think I get a pin or something, don't I? I get a Witted Pigeon pin.
I'll
But
have to look it up. Yeah, cool.
yeah,
Yeah, anybody who signs up to the Patreon, I send them at least a handwritten letter of thanks.
yeah, that's the thing. I'm
Because
not sure if I should send one first or wait for yours and then send one.
it's up to you. I'll send
Okay.
one. You can send one too if you like.
Okay.
Has anybody written me back? I don't think so, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Which is fine. It's totally not required. Listen, I know how hard it is to write letters.
yeah. I just want to take the challenge because I was listening to that podcast.
With Dr. Sinclair.
Yes, that
Yeah.
was the one. And you were saying that the record of is three? Is it three letters
I
that you've
think.
received in a
Yeah,
row?
I'd have to look back. I've got the files in here, but
Okay.
I think it was 3, maybe 4 letters.
Okay. All right. I'll see.
You're
How
gonna try and beat the record?
Yeah, I want to beat the record. Yeah.
Well, I'll always write back. So
Oh,
if people want
fantastic.
to write me a letter,
Okay.
I'll write back.
Oh, great. All right then. So today's a big day for you, isn't it? Because you're going to
It
have
is a
this
big
meeting.
day. Yeah, I've got a meeting with a group from San Francisco about possibly facilitating the course on understanding media.
Mm.
So we'll see how that goes. That could be very helpful.
Yeah.
They also have a big audience, so it could double the size of the course.
Yeah, you mentioned that
which
in
would
email.
which would
That's
be great. Yeah.
Yeah. So you said 40 people have
I think I'm at 39 people that have emailed
39.
me wanting to know more.
I mean, it's incredible.
It is.
I didn't expect it.
Well, neither did I. When I threw that out there, I said, if 5 people
You
email
did.
me and say they're interested, I'll write an outline. And if 10 people sign up for the course, I'll
get
deliver it.
into it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was like, in the first day, I had like 20 people. So I'm like, oh shit, now I got to do this.
Wow.
But that's, obviously that's fine.
But it's a big
thrilled.
task. That's why it's a huge task. That's why I wrote to you and said that if you want me to do that
Yeah.
sort of what would you call it? Data entry and putting
Yeah, the
putting in
legwork.
these references, yeah,
Yep,
I
very
can do
helpful.
that. And
Basically, it's 12 classes, and each class is essentially a lecture by me. So, you know, luckily, I've already got, I've done so much work on The Medium is the Message, that first chapter, that one's ready to go.
mhm.
But what I'm also doing is I'm bringing a couple of Marshall's annotated copies of Understanding Media into it. And
That's
that
great.
that will add, yeah, that will add a lot to the class. Nobody's ever seen that before other than me and
No.
my dad.
Oh,
So
it's
this is,
extraordinary.
it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Really, the challenge is going to be in keeping it keeping it down to a reasonable amount of
Oh,
time, because
yeah.
even just me talking without those extra books, I could go on an hour or more. But then bringing those things in and then talking about them, um, it, it could grow exponentially. So I
Yeah.
want to keep it manageable, because it's
Oh,
so
of
easy
course.
to get caught up and lost, and because it's so heady and
Oh, it
exciting,
is. Yeah.
um, that it's the danger is in too much
Yeah,
information
yeah.
overload, right?
Yeah.
So I'll do my best to keep it manageable, and in that way keeping it profitable. And
Yeah.
there'll probably be a 201 and a 301, and it could go on and on, because
Yeah,
honestly,
good.
12 classes, um, I'm only really going to be dealing with the first half, the first part of the book. There isn't enough time in 12 classes to do the whole book.
Oh, no, yeah. Yeah.
So but it'll be good. I'm really looking forward to it. I can't wait. I think I'll probably start early October, because I want to have it done this year.
Okay. Oh, fantastic. And I guess with those references, you just need to um, give a brief mention of what it refers to. It doesn't have to go into depth.
No, well, what I'll probably do is take your document and
Yeah.
add some notes to it.
Yeah.
I'll 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 look it up against uh, my inventory of Marshall's books,
Yeah.
and I'll make a note of which books are in Marshall's library. That
Hmm.
way, if people are in the Toronto area, they can go and look at the books.
Yeah.
Um, the staff at the Fisher Rare Book Library are amazing, so
Yeah.
they're very good at answering people's requests. So if you're not able to go to Toronto, you might be able to get a look at something if you're really interested.
Oh, wow.
So that will be a great resource. Thanks for contributing that, Sam. Really appreciate it.
Okay then. And also, do you use images? Do you plan to use images in your?
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
I haven't decided. Um, we'll see.
Okay. All right. All right then. Well, it's getting into the early early hours of the morning here. Um, but thank you so much for this. I enjoyed it immensely, and I'll write you a letter.
Okay, thanks, Sam. It's great to talk to you.
Likewise.
All right,
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day.
take care.
Okay. See you then.